Welcome back to Burn the Ship, the podcast we connect entrepreneurs to professionals to help you go all in on your business. I'm your host, Ezra Brown, and without further ado, I'm going to allow my guest to introduce himself.
Hello. Thank you, Ezra, so much for taking the time to meet and letting me be on this podcast. My name is Kranthi Bathula. I'm the CTO and co-founder at Proctor 360. We're a remote proctoring company. Basically, what that means is if you want to take a test online and want to verify that that test has no malpractice or violations that are happening on it, we verify that that test was taken in a fair and practical manner.
Absolutely. So, Karathi, tell me a little bit about your background, kind of where you come from, because getting into entrepreneurship is not something that it doesn't just come to, it just comes to people, but people got to take that leap of faith sometimes. But kind of tell us a little bit about your background before Proctor 360.
Yeah. My background, right now I work in like education, like the education industry, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like testing industry, right? But prior to that, my background really wasn't that at all. For undergrad, I did my undergraduate degree in biomedical engineering, and then I went and I got a master's in biomedical engineering, and it was kind of weird. Like right after I finished up my master's, I was kind of just waiting for something to do. So I was applying to jobs and like doing all that, waiting to go join the workforce. And my father, who who's been working in the testing industry for the past 10 plus years, he saw that a lot of the market was going online in terms of like test delivery and proctoring. And he kind of asked me, hey, I want to start this company. Do you want to be my co-founder and manage the technology side? So with that, I kind of got into it. And yeah, it's been about 7 years. It's going to be 7 years in May.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's so biomedical engineering all the way to doing technology. That's a big
Yeah.
shift.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
tell us a little bit about Proctor 360 and what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a remote proctoring company, and what that really means is we want to allow the ability for secure exams to be delivered from anywhere in the world, right? We want you to be able to take your exam with as little as an internet connection, right? So what you see traditionally is a lot of exams that you need to take, especially high stakes exams, even higher ed exams, right? You need to
Mm-hmm.
go into the classroom or you need to go to a testing center because they need to proctor you, right? And
Right.
they need to verify that, there's no dishonesty happening, right? And I understand why classroom settings, like, learning is very you communicate with your peers and you do all that, but testing itself is very individual. You're testing that
Absolutely.
individual. So it's not really necessary to go into a classroom for testing when you can just take it at home. So, and same thing with going to a center to go take it. You
Right.
don't have to drive there. You don't have to do all this stuff. It's a big hassle. So being able to take it online and just being able to log in, take your exam, and then get on with your day saves everybody a bunch of time, a bunch of stress, and a bunch of effort. So I think that was the big goal of what we wanted to do, have been able to do, and continue striving to do really with Proctor 360.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And me being fresh out of school, so I'm 2 years graduated as of May. Um, took a lot of proctored exams in my time.
Yeah,
Um, so it could have been you guys actually on the back end
maybe,
of it.
maybe.
But and that's definitely one of those things where it's a different type of niche to get into, and it's definitely something more new age because of everything going digital. How much of y'all's business shifted? I guess how long you guys been in it for? Close to what you said, 10 years,
7 years, 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
So you guys were around before COVID. So how much did y'all's business change after COVID?
We definitely saw a dramatical increase once COVID started because, all these organizations, whether they're schools or certifications, now they were kind of forced to deliver them online because they didn't want to stop business, right? So they needed these tests to be conducted and they needed to validate that everything was fair across the board. So that's where we saw a huge increase in our business. And then after COVID, you would kind of expect it to dip and
Yeah.
like go back to normal. But and we did see a little bit of a dip, but what we noticed was if you gave the majority of people the option to test online, they wanted to do that. The floodgates were kind of open. Like prior to this, students, candidates, they didn't really have that option anymore. now they were like, well, why can't we just do that? It's so much better and so much more convenient. So I think that was the big shift that we saw. Like we were kind of expecting it to dip down after COVID, but we saw it dip down a bit, but steadily increase year on year on year.
Right. And then what would you say has been like, or actually, how do you guys go about getting your clients? You know, how do you guys get into that education system? Because I know that it's government. I don't know if it's a government contract, what or not that looks like. You know, for that side.
It's kind of across the board, so it really does vary.
Uh huh.
Um, So you're right. Like a lot of these public universities, they have to go through a very specific like bid proposal, and you have to like go bid and put together a proposal and then
Hmm.
wait along their timelines and everything like that. A lot of private organizations, they're a little bit simpler. They're not as there's not as much scrutiny.
Hmm.
So either we find them or they find us. So, but in terms of how we get them, it's a lot of marketing, email campaigns, LinkedIn campaigns, Google campaigns. It's a lot of cold calls. The sales guys are always doing cold calls to, warm up leads or get in contact with a warmed up lead. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a lot of digital marketing. I think that's really big. We really invest big on the digital side, and
Hmm.
then conferences too. So
Okay.
that there are a lot of educational conferences, really making sure that we're hitting the right group of people and going to the right conference and, presenting there, being a vendor there. That's really important as well.
Absolutely, and that kind of segues me into the next one. Is Krati, what would you say is how do you guys vet to know if that's like somebody ideal for you guys?
Right, right. So that's a good question. I think the big thing is we always have an intro call, right?
Okay.
And through the intro call, we're asking them, hey, what are your specific needs? How can we help you? And
Hmm.
based on that, does does our product fit? Does it make sense for them? Is it going to actually help and deliver the needs that they're looking for? That's really
Right.
big for us because if it's not a good fit, we can go recommend someone else or we can go ahead and just let them know, hey, we don't think like we can meet your needs or you're not looking for us specifically. Please go contact this other
Right.
guy or this other person that we know of. So that's typically it. And during the intro call, we find out their specific needs. After that, we move them to a demo call, and then through that, what we talk about is we tailor the demo specifically to their needs. And we show them exactly what they're looking for, try to make it as simple as possible so they can grasp it and have a clear-cut answer of it. And then from there it goes to pricing.
I got you. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense because it's definitely like in our industry, that's what we say all the time. Like, not everybody's our ideal client, but we got to find,
Yeah,
if everybody that takes payments is a good client, but it's not always ideal.
yeah,
Just because
yeah.
you're looking for that right person. You don't want to deal with somebody that's going to call you 1,000 times, and or it's just user communication and error or whatnot that occurs. But that's something I always like to ask is how do you find that ideal person for you, because everybody's is different. It
Yeah.
could be, you got a home builder. He's like, well, I only want the person that's building a $250,000 home. I don't want the $1 million houses, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then what would you say has changed, over the last 7 years for you guys? Because I know it's definitely changed after COVID, I'm sure a little bit. But what has changed for you guys a lot over this last 7 years?
I think the big thing, at least from an organizational standpoint, the big thing that we focus on a lot more is planning now.
Okay.
Like really focusing on, hey, at the beginning of the year, we're like, hey, these are the things we're going to do this year, and we're committed to doing those things and those things only, right? And that kind of sets the stage for the entirety of the year. It makes a lot of decisions much more simpler because we
Hmm.
don't have to deal with, we this year we decided, hey, this is our conference list. This is all we're going to this year. And then, occasionally, I remember last year we didn't have that, and then we'd get emails saying, hey, do you want to join this conference? Blah 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 blah. And then we'd always have to have a conversation about it. But this year it's like conference list is set. Let's just do what we planned on doing. So, having that planning a year ahead and then just committing to that and focusing on that has been big. So I think that's a big thing across the board. And, as you get through the stages of a company, sales has its own plan, marketing has its own plan, development has its own plan, and then it allows everyone to be really focused. So I think that's the big thing, and the big thing that we've learned as a company, I've learned as an individual, is planning is key, and then committing to that plan is key.
For sure. And then, and that kind of gives me a something to ask here is what would you say you guys do really well? As you said, like planning something that y'all are obviously tuning into more now, but what's something y'all have done really well over the last 7 years that's kind of kept you guys above and beyond?
I think our customer retention. I think that's
Okay.
something I'm really proud about, is like the people that have signed with us have enjoyed our product and they've stayed with our product. And, we're not like, I'm not going to say we're like perfect. We've had issues before, a server going down here or there, it's happened, and, you would think that that would cause an issue, and, a customer would say, that's it. But they see the value in what they're getting with us, and that's making them stay regardless of those minute issues that happen here and there.
Absolutely. And then I would assume you answer the phone when they call.
Yeah,
Somebody does.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the biggest thing. That customer service matters a lot. Like, hey, this exam's messed up. Can you fix it? And then you
yeah,
get on there and probably takes you 10 minutes to do something that they think is going to take a year.
yeah. And that's the big thing. I think response time. I think a lot of people, it's not that they need a solution immediately. They just want you to know you're working on it and to actually be working on it. I think that's a
Absolutely.
big thing. And then that's really what we've tried to focus in on the customer management and the account management side, is like, we really drill into people that like, hey, if there's an issue, like, let's get on with the client as soon as possible. Let's get on,
Right.
and like, and I always think that sometimes things get like more complicated than they need to in email. So sometimes it's just like you get on the phone and you can just start talking and then like figure out the actual issue.
I
So
completely agree.
so I think that's been the biggest thing for me. So like being able to be as responsive and get solutions out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, especially our business here has been built on that. I luckily came into a company where we do merchant service, we do the credit card process and stuff. So it's a lot of 1-800 numbers. A lot of people are talking to people that they don't want to they don't want to sit on a call with a 1-800 number that could take them 5 minutes if they had somebody that answers real time and makes that problem.
Yeah.
And luckily we have that in house. We have a customer service team in house. So I have that luxury of being able to my clients call me and I'm like, call one of the girls in the office and they'll be able to fix it for you. If they can't do it right now, we'll have it done within the next, in the next 3 to 5 business days. We'll make
Yeah.
sure that it's done for you. And that's a big thing I get to lean on, and it does help us retain a lot of people. So I appreciate, that from you guys, and you saying y'all do that really well. That is something that customer service does keep clients around and keeps them coming back too. I'm sure that you've gotten some referrals through that through the time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I really don't think, well, what I think is like it's not 99% of the time everything's going to be fine.
Uh huh.
1% of the time how you respond, how you react is really what matters.
And we say it in here is eat the frog. Take that call. That one customer service call that you didn't take yesterday, but you take it today. That problem has grown double the amount that it was yesterday instead of taking it yesterday when you could have just fixed it.
Yeah, exactly.
And yes, so I could definitely see where that grows helps the business a ton. And then off of that, the polar opposite of that, what have you guys not done so well? Something that you guys have worked on, been working towards to do a little better.
I think my CEO gives me crap about this all the time. I work on
So
like the
there's the
tech.
perfect one right here.
Yeah, I work on the development side, so like we have a lot of projects in queue, and
Yeah,
sometimes he's always like things are rubbernecking, like the timeline for a project, like it's taking longer than it should. And like these aren't like client specific problems, these are more like, internal development that we want to do to just improve the product. And like I
absolutely.
really like holding things in the sandbox, like our sandbox environment, for a really long time, because I want to make sure that it's stable, right? And like,
Yeah,
it's me and my CEO kind of going back and forth, and he's like, push it to production, push it to production. And I'm like, I just need another week. I just want to test it
hmm
out a few more times in these different scenarios. And,
right.
you know, and I think there is credit to what he's saying because once you push to production, it's gone live, right? So that gives you a huge user base to test it against, and you can see if there are any problems in a much more varied fashion than you would be able to see it just confined to yourself.
Absolutely. So you're a little bit of a perfectionist, is what it sounds like.
Little bit.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Because I know a little bit about tech because we do work pretty closely with a couple developers. It's kind of that's what gets you paid in the credit card world is software developers,
Yeah,
developing software. Somebody be the next QuickBooks, whatnot and stuff like that. But that tech world is definitely it's you got to break it. I've
yeah,
seen that with one of the newer ones we're working with now. It's in that sandbox stage where it could definitely jump out. We're just waiting on the right person to come in and be like, let us run the full thing in there because
yeah,
it does need the users to break like you're
yeah,
saying that's definitely one of those things. And our developer, he's like he said it was ready at 3 months, but he was the opposite. He like no, it needs another 6 months, dude. You gotta keep running on there because it's gonna break with 5 users.
yeah, yeah.
But no, man, that's awesome. And that's the next thing I want to ask is how did you get into that coding side? Especially coming from the medical side of background, what made you shift over to this side? Technology.
I think the big thing in terms of making me shift over, I saw an opportunity, I saw a need in the market, and I was willing to go do it. Me and my co-founder both. So I think that was the reason we did it. We just saw a need. We wanted to bring out a solution, and we knew we had a good idea. So we just committed and committed hardcore. In terms of the transition from, biomedical engineering to tech, the core is still engineering, right? The core is still their problems and you have to solve them and, you have to come up with different solutions. So regardless if it's related to biomedical devices, whether it's related to software, the core is to find a solution to a problem. And that's what I love doing, problem solving.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. That's awesome. And you're in the right world for it now then. But and it's definitely a difference, obviously a big swing. But going into that industry, and that's something like you said, your dad was in that space, in that educational space for a while, and to see that need in an early on stage is awesome. Be almost a pioneer in that space essentially. Because I would say like test proctoring is a fairly new thing. I would say it's less than 15 years old
Yeah,
to where it was
yeah.
online wise, and to get in early is really good. But also building a brand, and that's something that's awesome. And how has that been for you guys building that brand?
Building a brand in education it takes time. That's what
Hmm.
we've seen, I think it takes a lot of time because customers really, they're risk averse,
Yeah,
and I get it. I get it. Like they're risk averse, they want to try something true and tested. And I think in the beginning that was a bit difficult hurdle for us. So it definitely took some time to establish ourselves as a trusted brand that can consistently perform. So I think it took time, it took a lot of marketing efforts, it took a lot of going to conferences, meeting the right people, talking to the right people, having the right conversations, a little bit of luck, but most of it, to be honest with you, is just grinding away.
absolutely. That's awesome. And then one of the last ones I got for you is really, what do you guys see yourselves going in the next 5 to 10 years? What does that look like for you guys? That plan moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. I think the next 5 years. I'm really just focused on this year, but
Yeah, no, no, yeah,
the
no. But
next,
what do you got? What is that end goal for you? You and your founder. What is that end goal for you guys? Really, is more or less what I'm asking. Because
you know,
everybody has something in mind. You want to sell out to somebody. Sell out to a big corp or a big conglomerate, or is it something where you guys want to build it to where you can run it and you not have to take that service call, not have to do that coding, because you have people doing it for you to where you, Karathi, and you and your wife can go travel, go do whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever it is that you guys want to do.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we we're at a stage now where we have a lot of people that are working like with us, and whether it be account managers, salespeople, developers, so it's not as minute and hands-on day to day. I think the big thing is to grow this business as much as possible. I think one of our core tenets has always been to provide talented people with jobs. That's a big thing for me. Being able to support the community that we were raised in, and then being able to further that growth. I mean, provide clients and customers amazing experiences. That's really it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
always been the goal. I don't know in like 5 years whether we'd sell or what
Right.
would really happen. I can tell you that the goal of this company was always to, provide talented people with jobs, provide amazing experiences to customers and clients, and just do it exceptionally well on a day-to-day basis.
And then look with a goal like that, that's just good in heart, and good in mind to do that, and that's probably ultimately why you guys are so successful is because the people that are coming to work for you know who they're coming to work for. They're working for genuine people that want to help them, not
Yeah,
just hey, I want to strong arm and get all the money in myself. It's
yeah,
I want to spread the love and kind of show you guys what it's like to, I'm sure they're getting those learning how to build business, learning and being around it. The guys that have been around you guys, ladies and gentlemen, that have been around you since you started.
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
I'm sure that do you guys actually, this is a good question right here. Do you guys turn over employees a good bit, or do people stay? You get good retention with your employees?
We've gotten good retention on people. Like that's something I'm very proud of.
It
Like
says a lot.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are obviously people that will leave, but the people that stay, they seem happy, so that makes me happy. I think that's one of the biggest things I'm proud about is just being able to provide jobs and being able to, give back to a society.
Absolutely, that's awesome. And then the last thing I have for you is, our podcast is called Burn the Ship.
Hmm.
Do you know where we got Burn the Ship from?
Yeah, Cortez, right?
Yep, it is.
Yeah,
It is. It is. Cortez, when he landed in modern day Mexico and made his men disassemble their ships
yeah,
and burn them on the beaches. And that was their sign that he was going to make it there. They were going to die trying. And we used the same sense in entrepreneurship. And I'm sure you and your business partner have did the same thing, burnt the ship and went all in on something that you guys believed in. And sounds like you're making it now. You hadn't died trying yet. But what was that emotion? That's what I always ask and finish the podcast with is what was that emotion like for you going into something new? Founding a new company, going into a new field, a new vertical or new niche.
yeah.
What was that like for you?
I think in the beginning, and I'll be very honest with you, in the beginning, it was exciting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I knew what I know now that I would have done it then.
Really?
Because, yeah, because in the beginning it was exciting for about 3 months. And then
Yep.
you start putting in 60, 80-hour weeks. And for the first 3 years of this company, I lived in my parents' basement and just to get this off the ground. And, it took a lot of work, effort, and, there's some it was stressful, man. It was really stressful, and I there's some feelings and that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. So
Right.
like it was rough in the beginning, just getting everything to work and get going. But being able to come out of that and being able to do what we've always wanted to do from the start and being able to achieve those goals has been worth it.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's good to hear. I love that. And the last thing I'll give is tell the people where to find you.
You can find us at proctor360.com. If you have any testing needs or just want to talk, you can reach out to us and we'd be happy to help you however we can.
Absolutely. We'll have Proctor 360 and Karate stuff linked down below for you guys. Please go check them out. If you're a university, anything of education sorts or it's something of testing needs, we'd love for you to connect with them and help them out because they sound like they're good people and they got a good business going. So once again, burn the ship, guys.